If you would turn to the book of Psalms. Do you think that someone can be alive and not have a heartbeat? Medically? I think, I feel like, and you may or may not know my story, but as I was growing up, I made a profession of faith at 18 years old, and I kind of missed, and I'm sure you do better, but I kind of missed the mark on the whole lordship thing. I understood the salvation part, and I understood that God can be gracious, and I understood that God is loving and merciful, and He takes care of me, but I didn't really get the whole lordship thing, and it took me a while to get my heartbeat in line with God's heartbeat when it meant the way I walked, the way I acted. See, I think God has a plan, and He has this plan of taking struggle and somehow turning it or morphing it into celebration, making it better. And God's plan was never really for us to struggle, I believe. I actually think His plan was for us to reap a harvest, a blessing. And we've gone through this seeds study, and we're kind of looking at what it means to pour out the seeds that God gives us. I think God's plan was actually, in a precise, very unique, blessed way, was that we might have a celebrating type life. I know this is strange, but do you have a favorite football team or a favorite baseball team or let me just ask you this: do you have somebody that you hate? You don't? Really? Because evidently there's no New York Yankees fans here, because Yankees fans, they don't even like the Mets from across town. And Yankees fans travel really well. You ever been to the ballpark and watched the game and it's the Rangers playing the Yankees? There's lots of they hate everybody but New York. You know, God really wanted us to be in such a place where we are celebrating other people. We're celebrating what good happens in your life, what joys and blessings fall your way. Well, how do we do that? And how did He expect us to do that in such a way that it gave us this celebration of life? Karen and I were in I don't know, anybody know where Cranfield's Gap is? I didn't know where this was, but it's on a little road between Hamilton and Meridian. There was this little German restaurant. And it's so weird because when I say there's nothing around this German restaurant, there is nothing around this German restaurant. It's, I don't know, 10 miles or so from Meridian, Cranfield Gap, there's nothing there. Anyways, there's nothing. And there's this authentic, thick-walled, German-shaped building. There's food in there. Good food. And so we go there, and there's one lady who's working in there. She migrated in 1994 from outside of Frankfurt. Her daughter said that she was going to marry a Texas guy in the military, and she did. Said it as a child. Anyway, long story, boring story. Not really boring, but great. Anyway, the moral of the story is there's one lady. She's cooking the food. Authentic German food. Not out of a baggie. Never heard the microwave ding. Good food. She's waiting at the table. She's taking care of the customer. She's ringing up the customer. She's doing she's everything. And if I were to guess, and I hope she doesn't see this video and I'm way off, I would guess 75 to 78 years old. Do you know anybody that's German? Do you? Yes, you be. Sometimes Germans, we're abrupt, way too direct, way too direct. And so it was comical to me to watch her when she's like, you want a table, you have to have a reservation because it's that busy. And you ask for something on the menu, no. Not no, it's not on there, because it's on there. You saw it's on there, but it's not available today. She just didn't say it's not available today. She said, no. Anyway, so we go through, and at the end, we wanted some bread, German bread. Anyways, German bread. Did I give you bread for your meal? No. Is that going to exclude us from getting some now? Because I don't know how to answer this. And you're like, well, how does that fit? Well, it fits exactly, because sometimes we feel like in the legacy that God has given us and how we walk with Him, sometimes we forget that it's not always glamorous. Sometimes it's just another Monday at the restaurant. And sometimes, this is going to sound really strange, sometimes there's no help. You just got to do again or over again. If we really thought there was a difference, though, in a way to, and you know the difference between legacy and history, right? History is what's happened behind. History is what's maybe where your family came from or whatever, like where her family came from. But legacy is what you leave for those who come after you. What difference you make for them. Well, if we're thinking about legacy and actually having a legacy, Psalm 126 tells us that there's actually 3 quick things that will allow us to have a legacy. Not only a blessed legacy, but the legacy like God would have us to have. The first one is the joy of freedom from captivity. God's legacy was that not that we would ever live in captivity. Verse 1, Psalm 126. When the Lord brought back the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue was singing. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. It's as though their return from captivity was joyous and blessed. And you know one of the first things that you see there? It was joyous and blessed, not because it was a political policy. Not because the ruling party just suddenly said, okay, we're going to let you go. But it was because God had this intervention. And God intervened. And when God intervenes, great things happen. Glorious things happen. Joy-filled happen. And they say that their hope was not in this policy, but in this intercession by God. But did you see there? There were some who were happy, and then it says, and then they were happy. It's as though they were happy for the others who had a close relationship with God. That's what I want to be. I want to be the type person that helps people get close. I don't want to be the type person that stands in the way or causes people to stumble or causes people to hurt. I want to be that person that gives their heart in such a way that gets people closer to God. And then I want to celebrate for them because that means they have a bit of my legacy, my relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. See, verse 2 and 3 tell us that, and we so easily forget this, or maybe it's just me, I so easily forget that God's will is empowering. It's exciting. Lots of other stuff is exciting. You remember way back when, long back when the Cowboys won a championship? And I'm a Cowboys fan. Don't get me wrong, I really am. I like the Cowboys a lot. Always have followed them. Even growing up in Houston, I liked them a lot. But it's amazing to me that we have gotten to be a culture where sometimes a body, a church, not just here, but I'm talking about the church. You know that the church is just one church worldwide, right? We as a body sometimes get the idea that if somebody is victorious, somebody is a loser. Do you know that's not the case when it comes to God? He's not only more than capable, He is willing to make each one a winner in His kingdom work. And nobody else has to sacrifice other than His Son. And because of that, we can be excited. I can be excited because you have a victory. I can be excited because things are better for you. I can be excited because things are going good for you. I don't have to feel slighted. And that gives me a joy and a freedom not to feel captive or not to feel oppressed or hurt in that way. Well, what's the second thing? Verse 4. The joy of faith in God's plan. And you know that faith is perpetual, right? You have a little faith and then it grows and it gets perpetually brought along. Verse 4 tells us, bring back our captivity, O Lord, and the streams as the streams in the south. And I love this. You ever read the Bible and you just kind of gloss over something because you're like, that doesn't make sense. I don't really get that. Well, let me help you with that. See, he was talking about the restoration from captivity meant more than their physical freedom. It meant more to them to be close to God than it did to be out of the bondage that they were in. What they're saying is the circumstances, the situation that I'm in is not bigger than my God. Being close to my God is much more important. Because, circumstances change, right? Every once in a while for the better. Sometimes not for the better for a while. But he says that it's a weird phrase. He says, bring back our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. Well, if you know where they're at and where this is, the writing, the wadis, the streams in the south, they don't exist. They're dry. There's no, you think of this, running stream and it's blue, and sit there and listen to the water go by. No. What happened there was, and the reason they emphasize the speed of it, that's where the flash floods come through. You talk about speed, you talk about power, you talk about excitement. Well, depending on which side or where you're at in the stream. Never mind. When the rushing waters come, when the flash flood comes, it's clear, it's distinct, it's roaring. So it's not some babbling brook. He wanted, the writer of the psalm wanted their faith in God's plan to come back as a rushing mountain of water. Bring it on, Lord. Bring it all. Bring it fast. Bring it hard. Bring it monumentally. That's pretty admirable, right? We would never say, Lord, bring it like a brook, like a stream, like a trickle. Would we? We probably shouldn't stick with that very long. Let's move on. See, it's a clear call for God's rapid and powerful move. And the other thing about a flash flood or a stream that goes so quick, there really is no way to stop that. Can you imagine if you stood in the middle of the stream and said, wait, I'm not ready. Wait, God, don't put it out here all at the same time. Wait, Lord. Can you imagine what that water would do to you? How much it would overwhelm you? Verse 5. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. He's saying here that there's this joy of fortunes, and not just fortunes being available, but fortunes being reversed. It's almost like he's saying those things that were intended for evil can be turned to good. Do you believe that? I kind of hope for a little more oomph there, but I really do. And sometimes I forget that God can make even the things that are intended for difficult or struggle or even evil, He can make them good. And they're not so much hinging, they do hinge on my steps, of course, but what makes God continually good? What makes things continually fall in the process of reversing those evil things and making them blessings? I look at it like a family's legacy. Over time, a family is completely changed. Maybe, and it depends on where you grew up. You grew up in a home that's very angry. You grew up in a home that's poverty-stricken. You grew up in a home where there's difficulty and struggle and angst and fighting and all kinds of things. And God begins to mold those in the home, and they begin to follow Him. And the next generation, kind of like mine, I didn't grow up in a godly home. I didn't grow up with godly parents. And the next generation, I went to church. I made God a priority, and I tried to follow Him. And I'd stumble and fall and bounce around here. But through those times, I've been so blessed. My kids, our kids, 4 kids, they go to church. You've seen it in your lives. Where you begin in a place, and through history and through walking with God, through making steps that go the right way, it reverses the legacy of your family and makes you into something that you were never before. That's what I want to be. I want to be it from this point forward too. I want to be that person who stands for the right, who does the right things, who continually does the good things. It doesn't say it here, but it reminds me of the way that the Jewish people follow the rules, follow the law. You know, for them, that it's very important to get the steps right, because that's how they believe they earn a relationship with God. And they believe it so much that there's even you ever read the 10 Commandments? Here, we'll take just a moment. Can you quote them? Oh, yeah, that's the look I give when people ask me. They're like, "You're a preacher, quote the 10. Can I get ish? Because I can get ish. I can get ish on all 10, but anyways. Do you know that there's 613 commandments in the Torah, according to the Jewish belief? I read through them all this morning. Well, not all of them. I did skip. About 400, I got distracted. I couldn't do it. Anyways, but there's all kinds of stuff, and they have rules for this, and rules for that, and rules for this, and rules for that. And sometimes I think if I just knew the rules, so I could be supportive, so I could be helpful, so I could do all the right things, and do them all right, I could do better. And then I look at all those rules, and there's 613, and I'm like, I don't want any part of that. I can't fulfill it. And then I get confused, and you probably never had this trouble, but I remember back to my school days, and do they grade on a curve? See, some of you there were with me. Yeah, I'm praying for that curve. I want things, a little boost. They don't grade on a curve. You got to get them all right. Every last one. Is that why it's so hard for the children of Israel to see the Messiah? It's because it's so ingrained that they have the steps that they must fulfill. Instead of seeing that God has desired from the very beginning to reverse the legacy of who we were, who we are. From the moment of the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, God has sought to reverse the fortunes of mankind. And through that, bring us closer to Him. And through that, make us into somebody that we never would have been before. See, I think rules are frustrating and limiting. They frustrate me because I can't do it. I can't fulfill them all. So you know what we do? Then we make our own little rules. Rules that we kind of go with. And then we can't fulfill those. And they're kind of limiting because you know what happens after a little while? Actually, not very long. We begin to look at the rules instead of looking at God. You know, the Bible says that's creating an idol, right? And we're not supposed to have any idols above Him. Well, if we're going to do this legacy thing and we're going to be serious about it, we're going to take a stand and we're not going to have this misunderstood or misrepresented task or steps. What do we do? Well, I'm glad you asked. That leads us to your piece of paper. Now, I'm not going to ask you to write down any particular thing in the beginning, but I want you to notice that one side of the paper has bondage and burdens. And because of that bondage and burdens, we need to do something, first of all, and set the stage straight. Set the parameters of who we are and what we do. And this one with bondage, I would equate it to where the Bible talks about that the seeds are sown, and there's some seeds that are sown to fertile ground, and some seeds are sown where there's weeds. These are the weeds. These are the things that separate, distract, take away nourishment from your spiritual walk with God. And because we have these burdens, because we have this bondage to those weeds, it deters our relationship with God. So if you take your paper, and if you want, you don't have to, but if you want, you can write on there some of the things that are weeds. Maybe it's words that were said to you, things that hurt as you were a child and growing up. Maybe you were told that you never amount to anything. Maybe you were, whatever it was told. The way it pierced you, spoke evil over you, maybe you need to write that down. Maybe there's hurts or offenses, things in the past that haven't gone, even though you had good intentions, maybe they just didn't go well. And because of that, there's offenses or hurts. Do you know that God would never have a division in His body? He loves us so much that He wants us to be unified. He wants us to come together. He wants us to be those who stand together, not stand on hurts or offenses. That somehow we get it resolved. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of clumsy at that. I want to be better at that. I want to get things straight. What about if it's a disappointment? And a disappointment with someone else, someone you trusted, someone you believed in, someone you felt close to, and then they betrayed you. They took advantage of you. I'm not just talking about molestation. I'm talking about in a variety of ways. They hurt you deeply. Maybe you're disappointed in yourself. Maybe you thought you'd be further along. Maybe you thought things would be different. Maybe you thought you'd be better. I was laughing and joking. Karen and I grew up in Houston area in two suburbs that were close to each other. And, we talked about, well, wouldn't it have been nice to know each other before, and got married earlier. We could have spent more time. It's so loving. And I'm sorry. And but then I had to bear the truth. The truth is, you wouldn't have liked me. I don't like that guy. And I know you wouldn't have liked that guy. That guy was selfish. That guy was erratic. That guy was anger-filled. That guy's not good. Guy. And it took God, it didn't take Him, it took a long time for me to get out of the way so God could fix it. God could have just fixed it immediately, but I wouldn't allow it for a long time. But I had to get out of the way of the disappointments of myself. And we can do that with our parents. I wish I'd been born in a better, more godly home. There's all kinds of things. There's also, some of the bondage that we have is destructive behavior. Sometimes we do things that put us in a position to lose. It's almost like a self-sabotage. Instead of being lifted up, we continue to tear down or to tear others down. And because of that, maybe we need to write that on this page. Another one I thought of was jealousy and being judgmental. Sometimes jealousy will cloud our vision. And I grew up in the inner city of Houston, and it just wasn't a good place. Isn't a good place. And I found myself very jealous of those who had a stable home life or who had money for lunch money or lots of different things. And all those things ate at me. And I thought I'd gotten past them, but what I didn't realize is those things were always in my subconscious, always coming back up. And I needed to work through those things so I wouldn't be self-destructive. So I could actually relish in you having all of those things, or my kids having those things, or better yet, my kids surviving us having those things. Because they weren't grateful and I wanted to pinch their little head off. And they got to say something back to me, and I would have been crawling out from under the refrigerator by then. But I don't want that legacy to be harm to my children. I want them to be blessed. I want them to be free of these burdens. The last one I thought of was to be free of fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety is a death grip on us, a distractant so powerful. Maybe you need to write down, God, I am fearful. Maybe, God, I am anxious about this or that. No, and I need to throw this in here. Nobody's going to take this page from you. I'm going to ask you to put it in your Bible and pray over it. Pray over it constantly. What about the second thing? The second side. And this has irritated me, and I won't take too much of your time, but I couldn't get the thing to line up. You got to turn the page over. And no matter, never mind, I'm over it almost, but, anyways, legacy for living. On this side, I want you to write, if we were going to do things correctly, if we were going to be biblical in approach, and we were going to have this seeds of a legacy that we plant, what would the seeds look like? Well, I came up with 6. The first one is a seed of trust. A trust in God. And whether you write down, God, I will trust you, or you just write seed of trust, or whatever, you pray over that, and whatever God leads you to, and however that looks, that's great. But we need to be people that trust God. And not, can I say this in church? Every once in a while I say something, and I've had little kiddos come back to me and say, you shouldn't say that in church. And it wasn't the word that I was thinking of. I said the word, wish I could turn that off. I said stupid once. Have you noticed I don't say that word? I was reprimanded. Anyways, they told their parent that I said the S word. And it was funny because the parents were in the message, and they were trying to, oh my God, did I fall asleep? I don't remember that. Anyway, what was the word I was thinking of? Oh yeah, control. We seek to control, and if you seek to control, you really have a hard time planting the seed of trust. You can carry it around, but you won't let it go into the soil, will you? What's the second one? The second one is a seed of favor. And this is where you pray over your children. Pray over your family. Pray over your spouse. Pray over that person that annoys you at work. I'm serious. Where you plant the seed of favor and ask God's blessing for them. And through that, whether it's your children or you personally, God will begin to move. I really believe we have not because we ask not. I want a close relationship with God. I want my kids to have a close relationship with God. I want you to have a close relationship with God. I'm going to ask. And I'm going to ask continually. I'm going to ask. And every once in a while, I told you we have 4 kiddos. Every once in a while you get one that you kind of tap each other and go, yep, there they go. They're going to do it again. Yep, there it is. And you pray for them, and it takes longer for them to grow up, to mature, to get right. And then eventually the Bible is true. They come home to their roots. And you see in them maturity and grace and love and a blessed family. You know that doesn't happen by chance, right? It happens because people stand in the gap and ask for God's favor. So we have this.